I'm currently in San Antonio, specifically at UTSA. Let's meet somebody.
Kind of feel like I'm overworked and underpaid.
Drinking from a coffee pot. Nobody wants to drink from.
In an eyeball planet, one part of the planet would always be facing the sun.
The iconic trope of like wanting to be an astronaut. What's your name again?
Jude Aiden.
Jude Aiden. Adrian. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you, Adrian.
So you're a student here at UTSA. You said biochemistry, right?
Yep, I'm a biochemistry major.
And you're gonna have your first like science job. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I definitely have volunteered at labs a lot at UTSA. I've been in a lot of lab classes, but this job at UT Health San Antonio is kind of going to be my first real science-based job where they're actually paying me money, which is always exciting.
Let's go.
I feel like I'm finally dipping or putting my foot in the door.
Is that like give you a lot of excitement? Are you scared almost?
Maybe not scared, but yeah, I would say excited,
Excited?
but nervous.
I would definitely be nervous
Little
for
bit
sure.
nervous. They're gonna expect me to know things that biochemistry majors are supposed to know.
It's like you're being tested almost at like every single corner. I was gonna say we were talking before this, and you said you wanted to be a doctor. What kind of like led you to be or want to be a doctor?
So when I was in high school, I kind of had a very low GPA. I also never took the SAT or ACT. So, I kind of had no measure of how smart I was. I wanted to like prove to myself that I was smart because I kind of locked in my senior year and started getting my grades up. I wanted to see how far I could keep that going. So I ended up choosing arguably like the hardest career path possible.
Yeah, definitely.
For no, just for, I don't know, giggles or something.
Okay, giggles. Yeah, for sure. I think that's kind of like the fault of like the US education or just education in general. It's like there's no true test about how intelligent somebody is.
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to just be like, okay, take these exams, take these classes, and this is how intelligent you are from like a letter grade or, a numerical grade. And I'm a big advocate for that because me personally, I feel like there are a lot of instances where I tell myself like, oh, if I really applied myself, I know I could do this, but I just don't want to.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd definitely say that in my social sciences classes, I've taken a couple of social sciences classes like psychology, and I took a class on autism. It was like advanced concepts in brain chemistry. They had a unit on autism, and in both of those classes they talked about like a bunch of different types of intelligence, like athletic intelligence, numerical intelligence, memorization intelligence. And I definitely noticed that when I got to high school, I just like and I started taking mostly science classes. My grades just went up because I wasn't taking any like history classes or any classes I didn't care about. But of course, I do try to get good grades in the classes that are more core curriculum based.
Yeah, for sure.
I do have good grades though, now that I'm in college.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's more like flip-flopped.
Yeah.
I was like super good in high school, and then right now I'm like struggling for purpose, like finding out like what am I doing?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. When I was little, I felt I had the iconic trope of like wanting to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, a doctor too. And because I thought it was super cool. It's like when you're a little kid, it's like you dream these big dreams, and you're like, oh, like seeing space would be nice.
Yeah.
You
gotta see it.
I was gonna say like, kind of like that childhood essence. I feel like I lack it at times now, and I really want to like tap back into it again.
Yeah, I definitely say. I recently watched a video on this guy. I forget what his name. I think his last name was Kim or something. But he was a U.S. Navy SEAL, an astronaut, and a doctor.
Was he like an Asian guy or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen that guy like everywhere on like Instagram or something.
Yeah, it's just a very interesting individual. And I was looking at the research he did, and it was all very interesting. And basically the research he did was not at all dissimilar to the research that I'm going to be doing this summer,
Mm,
but maybe more on a more advanced level. It was
okay,
he was doing research into immunofluorescence,
okay.
which is basically a field of science based around attaching these dyes to antibodies and tracking their path through the body.
That's really interesting. I
Yeah,
guess, like, kind of getting a microscopic,
yeah.
like, look into it.
But definitely he's one of the more fascinating astronauts in terms of his life story
When
and
you
what
hear,
happened to
like,
him.
stories like that, it's like, if you truly, like, reach, like, 20% of, like, your full brain capacity, you could
Yeah,
do so much.
yeah.
But, like, we're just stuck at, like, 5, 10%.
I think that's a misconception.
You think so?
Um, we only use 5 to 10% of our brain at any given moment in time,
Mhm.
but we do use the whole thing.
Really? Can you explain that more? Like, I low key never understood that.
Okay, so there are some parts of your brain. My knowledge of neuroscience is not where
I
it
mean,
should
like,
be,
it's
to be
fine.
honest. I am a biochemistry major. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
we don't actually have to take anatomy and physiology, which
yeah, I
is
mean, but
definitely a detriment for me since I'm trying to become a doctor. But
okay.
there are some parts of the brain, or actually, I should say, most of the brain controls processes you have no control over,
Okay, yeah, definitely.
like heart palpitations, blood flow, your organs, immune responses. You don't really have control over any of that stuff. And so when you monitor it for activity, it's just at a constant level. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you're not using it, it's just at a constant rate. And so when you think it's only one little specific part of the brain, I think it's actually back here. But yeah, I think we use 100% of our brain, but we don't use 100% of our brain to think.
Hmm. You think, like, cause like, I know that's, like, a misconception, like you're
Mhm.
saying now, but, like, theoretically, if we could use 100%, do you think, like, we would become, like, super sentient beings, I guess? Like,
You know, it is actually kind of fascinating. The human brain doesn't have the highest computing power of any brain on the planet or of any
okay.
computer we've ever made, but it is actually the most efficient computer on the planet in terms of fuel.
Hmm.
If you think about all the processes that the brain can do off of how little we use, like if you have like a supercomputer, think of it that way. You have to burn so much oil and
Oh my god.
energy to get
Crazy.
it to run a very specific simulation. And then in the brain, like for example, imagine you did become an astronaut. You just created a whole entire life simulation in your brain instantaneously with using very little energy. The brain is amazing at creating simulations, better than
Hmm.
any other supercomputer on the planet and better than any other AI program. You can make a simulation of basically anything. Um, some things are too complicated for the human brain to make a simulation of. So I would say if we could use 100% of our computing power to make simulations of things, make simulations of numbers, then we would be increasing the computing power of the brain. So that would obviously, um, I guess that would increase the size of the simulation, but I'm not
Mhm.
entirely certain it would be able to increase the complexity of simulations in the brain.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I was gonna say, cause when you look at movies, they do things that are kinda like, sci-fi, kind of,
Mhm.
supernatural, I would say. I forgot what the movie is called, but it's like this
Yeah,
girl
with,
taps into.
Scarlett
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Johansson.
yeah, she
Yeah,
taps into, like,
Morgan Freeman,
100%, and then she becomes,
and
like,
then
basically,
she
like, psychic
yeah,
almost.
and then at the end of the movie, she just disappears out of existence.
That's crazy.
Do you remember
No, I'm saying, like,
in the
do
end
you
of the movie, she just blips out of existence, bro.
but I think, like, that's what happens when you get to that point, though.
No, you
But
do
I'm
not.
saying, like,
Okay,
if you were in their universe, you know what I'm saying?
okay.
Because, like, she's, like, going beyond, like, atoms and shit.
Um,
No?
No, you can't. Okay, so no, that's like the first law of thermodynamics.
Okay, let's go, let's go.
You can't remove matter or add matter to the
Well,
universe.
of course. Well, that's like just physics,
Yeah,
right? Um, but like, I don't know. Do you like stuff like that? Or
science
like,
fiction.
yeah, or is it like low
Yes,
key
I'm an
like,
avid science fiction enjoyer.
okay, what's like your favorite like theory or like thing that like really gets you going, I guess?
My favorite scientific theory.
Because like I think for me, when it comes to sci-fi, the thing that I always think about and I think is like almost possible is like wormholes, for
Wormhole
instance.
travel.
Yeah, wormhole travel.
You know, I actually had an idea for a science fiction story that nobody has ever written before.
Okay.
Um, you're asking me about favorite scientific theory, and then I was like going through a bunch of different actual
Mm-hmm.
stuff in my head. But you know, there are these things called eyeball planets.
Okay. What does that mean?
So the Earth rotates. Part of it is getting hit by the sun. Part of it is facing the abyss behind us.
Mm-hmm.
And an eyeball planet, one part of the planet would always be facing the sun with no rotation. And so that part of the planet would be boiling hot. And then most of the planet that's facing back would be freezing cold.
Yeah. Okay.
But according to people who are smarter than me, I guess theorists, um, I guess I would say astrophysicist theorists, so not just regular theorists,
Mm-hmm.
think you might be able to have life on one of these planets on kind of a ring.
Like almost the equator
Yeah.
of like, but like
In
instead of
between the
being in the
hot and the
middle,
cold.
it's like,
Yeah, it's a ring
yeah,
around.
okay,
So it
yeah.
would be in the middle of the hot and the cold.
Hmm.
And this planet actually wouldn't have to meet a lot of the requirements for life to exist. For example, UV radiation. The Earth has to block most of the UV radiation that hits the planet, but on an eyeball planet, you wouldn't have to have that.
Because it only hits one
Yeah.
side. Okay.
So it would be tidally locked, which means there would be no waves like there are on Earth, but it wouldn't have to meet a few other requirements. So it might be able to sustain large life forms.
Hmm. I guess like the issue would be like
Hmm.
what the planet is comprised of
Yeah,
would be the main
needs to
issue.
have the chomps, the five elements that make up life.
Yeah.
CHOPNS.
Yeah, I think that would be like the main issue. But I think what you're saying is I think
Mhm,
it could work. And also too, I feel like as technology possibly on this planet
mhm,
advances, then you could colonize maybe more of like
yeah,
the blackout
yeah.
part of it.
But my idea for the book, or for a science fiction
Okay.
story, was that you would kind of have this mega city around the ring where all the rich people get to live in the middle of the ring where it's nice
Mm.
and beautiful. And then all the poor people have to live on the cold and hot outside of the ring. So
Yeah.
kind of like a cyberpunk city
I can see that.
around the ring of this planet.
Yeah, I like that idea actually. And they're just like either scorching or like literally mutating
Yeah.
or like just dying from
Yeah, so there would be
like freezing.
more radiation hitting the planet, exactly like what you were
Wow.
saying.
Hmm. That's really interesting. I've never
Yeah.
thought about shit like that.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be the only one who's never thought about that, because I tried to find a book or a story about
Yeah.
this. Nobody made it, but I don't know how to write
Mm.
books.
Maybe it's like on like some random Reddit post or something.
Yeah, I can't
Somebody got
write.
it.
I can't write. I don't know how to write
Can't
books.
write?
No, I mean
Really?
I can write, but I don't know how to write dialogue for
Would you
real.
say you're alright? Because I know that I can tell you're very smart.
Yeah,
Or at least you like learning,
science.
you
Yeah.
know? I'm the same way. But I am pretty creative too. Like I like writing poems. Is there
Hmm.
like a creative outlet that you have?
Um, is there? Probably not, actually, now
Probably
that I
not.
think about it. Do I have a creative outlet? No, I don't think I do. For
Why not?
real. No time. I
No
work
time.
like 60 hours a week. And
For
if you include school and everything I do,
that's a lot.
I
Is
know.
it stressful?
Definitely, I would say
Mm.
so. Kind of feel like I'm overworked and underpaid.
Drinking from a coffee pot. Nobody wants to drink from. What did she say?
I don't
I don't
remember.
remember either. But do you be watching movies and stuff?
Um, yeah. So,
You
did you
seem
see the
pretty
Dune
versed.
Dune 3 trailer?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Have you seen any of the Dune movies?
I know about them.
So, the Dune Dune movies are kind of interesting, but they're based off of this book series by Frank Herbert,
Okay.
and he was kind of the first person who made the sci-fi opera, which
Mhm.
a lot of people copied, like Star Wars copied, a few other people copied Dune. They're very good movies. You should really consider
No,
watching them.
I've heard so much about it, especially like
Yeah,
when Dune 2 came out, everybody
yeah.
was like raving for it.
The
So
Odyssey.
yeah, I should definitely get into it.
You ever heard of Robert Pattinson?
The name actually sounds
He
familiar.
was a guy in Twilight.
Okay, I've never. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. I grew up. My parents were a lot older,
Hmm.
so they kind of. I grew up on like VHS tapes, so like modern day movies, like I
Hmm.
look, you didn't watch none of that.
Okay, so there's this famous actor called Robert Pattinson. He's about to be like the primary antagonist in all of the highest budget movies this year.
Okay.
So he's going to be the primary antagonist of Dune 3, which
Mm,
is like probably the highest budget movie coming out this year. And then he's going to be the primary antagonist of The Odyssey, which is like the second highest budget coming out this
damn,
year. I know, it's
that's
crazy.
crazy. Dang. Is there anything that you're interested about or that you've been thinking about recently?
Mm.
You said that you don't have a lot of time, but what do you be thinking about? Are you almost graduating?
No, I still have 2 more semesters. I mean, I guess
One more
if you would
year?
consider that almost graduating, then yeah, I have 1 more year.
Nah, not
Yeah,
yet. Maybe 1 year. I feel like a year is a
definitely.
significant amount of time.
I'm looking forward to next semester. I've set it up so I have to take as few classes as possible
Hmm,
next year so that I can spend my last year relaxing a little bit.
that's actually really nice.
Yeah. But what am I? The United States went to
United
war with
States.
Iran.
Controversial.
Yeah.
It's a lot. What do you think about it? And I'll give you my thoughts afterwards.
Um, definitely feel like not as many people are gonna support going back to the Middle East as last time. Last time there was like millions of people primed and ready to go because
Mm,
of 9/11, but now there's nobody who wants to go back there.
yeah, definitely. It's like I will say a lot of people are probably just going to be put in a situation where they just have to go instead
Mhm.
of like people just kind of being more nationalist and
Mhm.
being like, oh, let's do this for the US,
Yeah.
you know? And, you know, there's a lot of issues when it comes to our presidency and stuff.
Mhm.
But I would say the Iran war, the goal for it wasn't that much of a benefit to us.
Mhm.
And then now that we're in this situation,
Mhm.
the goal has now become what we already had,
Yeah.
which was for the channel to be open.
Yeah.
And now it's closed and then theorize that it's gonna have a tariff on it,
Yeah.
which is just worse for everybody. And also too, apparently they're gonna do the tariff in
Mhm.
yuan, which would help like more like of the China and
Yeah.
Chinese Asian people that are coming and using
Yeah.
um that little passage, which is really bad for us.
Yeah.
So overall, it's like it's good.
Definitely. Like,
Well, it's nice to talk to you, man.
it's nice to see you, bro.
Nice to meet you, man.
We're gonna upload this.
I post all my videos on YouTube, but
Mhm.
sometimes I make like clips of like the videos and stuff.
Mhm. Make
And yeah,
reels for doom scrolling.
yeah, reels for doom
My true
scrolling.
passion,
Your
doom scrolling.
true passion.